stream as well. You could kind of join in just via live stream as well. And, you could say yes in the chats, or you could just kind of use your hands, even though no one will probably see you. So really quick question for you guys. How many of you feel our society has become more divided in the past decade? How many have felt disheartened due to these divisions? How many feel the divisions has been due to, and I'm gonna have a series of, options. How many have felt the divisions is due to growing economic inequities? Online divisions promoted by social platforms? Online propaganda by countries and bots? A lack of sense of community from citizens? Okay. So thank you everyone for making this call. For the next part of this section, if you can kind of put yourself in speaker mode, so you probably should just see me. Hello everyone. So I'm really excited for this call. I met Sonia Jackson through our mutual friend, Jim Bechtold, who's on this call. Jim was on a call, a Let's Talk, probably Jim, was it about last year or so? And it was about faith. And it was a period of time when, COVID was in full steam. There's a deepening sense of loneliness that I know I felt, but I know a lot of my friends felt as well. And I'm a firm believer that you have to believe that there's something bigger than just you, right? And for some people, faith is God. For some people, faith is their, community or this inner power. I know I have my sense of faith, but it's rare that we really get to talk about things that are really important to us, like faith, love. And so I was really excited to meet Sonia because she is so centered and such a loving person, and she is so powerful. And I felt, especially this past few years, this general divide among people, right? And you definitely feel it online and in some ways in your neighborhoods and communities where there's a lot of us versus them. And I'm a firm believer that there's more things that we have in common than things that set us apart. So, one of my reasons for starting Community of Seven is just to kind of get people to talk about things that mattered the most to them. And community is one of the things that's really important to me, and also love, but we don't really get to talk about it a lot. And so I'm so excited to have Sonia here today. She is amazing. She has over 20 years of experience managing $20 billion for corporate America, working at top Fortune 500 companies like Ford Motor Company, the Gillette Company, Procter & Gamble. Her last role at P&G was Director of Global Packaging for the company with a responsibility of $6 billion. She is the founder, president, and CEO of the Sister Accord, also known as the Accord Group. She is also the founder and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation. Her global movement, titled the Sister Accord, has 3 areas of focus: educating girls and women, enlightening girls and women on the power of sisterhood, and eradicating bullying and violence against girls and women. She's on a mission to have 1 billion girls and women learn how to love themselves and each other. Sonia is also the author of the Sister Accord, 51 Ways to Love Your Sister, which was nominated for a 2013 NAACP Image Award. She's had numerous media appearances and mentions in local TV, radio networks like Disney, Fortune Magazine, CNN.com, New York Times, Essence, Bloomberg, and it goes on. She's also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And her mantra is, there's always a seat at the table for excellence. And in the comments, I also had a link to her website, thesisteraccord.com, where you can get more information on Sonia. So Sonia, if you can kind of unmute yourself.
Yes.
You have such an amazing career at some iconic brands like Ford, Gillette, P&G. What is one of your most memorable career accomplishments during that time?
Oh, wow. First of all, let me just pause for a moment and just say thank you. I am so honored to be here with you all tonight. And thank you, Lan, for giving me the opportunity to be here. You know, when we first met, and Jim, our mentor, our brother, is on with us tonight, when he said, I have someone that you need to meet, you and I instantly had a heart exchange. And that's what's so powerful when you have a connector that brings people together. And it's none of that pretense, it's none of this other stuff. It's just a heart exchange. And so I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. So let me just tell you, boy, I have had some experiences. Do you all hear me? I don't think y'all hear me. I need to see everybody's faces. I've had some stuff that I have been through, that I have experienced in corporate America, and everyone tells me that it needs to be my next book. So I'm actually putting together some thoughts around that. So starting at Ford Motor Company, in purchasing, in supply chain, you may hear those terms synonymously, all male, and here I am from Saginaw, Michigan. Y'all know where Saginaw, Michigan is? Okay, yeah.
No, outside New York.
Yeah, so, you know, Michiganders, we hold our hand up, and Saginaw is in this little Bay Area. It's an hour and a half north of Detroit. So very small town. So, you know, kind of sheltered. It was a General Motors town. And I decided that I wanted to go a different path. So I went to Ford Motor Company instead of going to GM, where all my family was. And so when I come into the company, and this is very important, I know this is for someone who's on here tonight. I come into the company and I'm watching and observing my leaders. And by the way, I'm listening to my leaders, what they're saying to me, and they're saying, hey, you know, as a leader, you don't get involved in the people who work for you. You don't get involved in their personal lives. You don't get to know them. You know, just a lot of conversation that was very distant in nature. And I'm a relationships kind of girl, right? And I knew that about myself. So I'm just asking myself, okay, is this the right place for me? Something, I'm not so sure. So I asked my leaders, I said, what are we going to do when our suppliers no longer is, you know, willing to take some of the things that we're saying and doing to them? And they say, hey, I'm going to Toyota and give them my innovation. Or I'm going to go somewhere else because I no longer feel valued. And what did my leaders do? They laughed. They were like, huh, no one would ever do that. And I said, well, I have a solution. I'm not going to bring a problem without a solution. And so I said, let me help put together some supplier relationship principles. And they said, that's never been done in the industry before. What are you talking about? I said, I believe if we get our relationships right, if we change the narrative on how we're treating each other, listen, win, lose, that is not a long-term sustainable proposition. There needs to be more win-win. So listen, family, I'm literally coming in to 100-year-old industry and infusing who I am. I am literally infusing and bringing my full self to the table so that there could be some change. So I think they said, you know, we've got to get her out of our office. Whatever she wants to do, let's let her do it and appease her. And so I led putting together, for the first time ever in the domestic automotive industry, supplier relationship principles. Now get this. This is the thing that really blows my mind. When people call me or text me and say, hey, you know, the reason why we didn't have to take the government bailout money when the economic crisis happened is because of your supplier relationship principles. Get that. That wasn't even what I was thinking about. I was just saying, I'm uncomfortable with how people are being treated in this room. And I spoke up. And so if anyone is dealing with, oh Lord, should I speak up? Should I say something? Absolutely. And if you find that the environment that you're in right now is one that does not value and appreciate integrity and being kind and all of that good stuff, then there may be another place for you. But I would say, in order for you to get up every single morning and be able to look at yourself in that mirror and know that you are operating from a place of authenticity, that will, it transforms your life. It literally transforms your life. And we have all sorts of research that says what happens to our cellular structure in our bodies when we do these things. And so that one, what really blew my mind, because I did not expect that that would have such a long after I was gone, the company was benefiting by me speaking up and saying, hey, this is not right.
So you're really led by your values in a lot of ways. So how did you convince these, traditional executives? You really kind of innovated something. Like, how did you convince the leadership to go with your plan? Which, like, now listening to it, it was like, of course, that makes sense, right? Like supplier, diversity, supplier, relations.
Yes.
You really kind of innovated something that wasn't being done in the automotive kind of industry. How did you convince the leadership to say yes?
You know what happened was people, and I think they thought my kindness was going to be a weakness, right? I'm coming in and I'm being respectful and kind to suppliers, and suppliers are like, wait a minute, who is this lady? Because everyone over here has cursed me out, right? So I came in with a leadership style that I had to create. So here I was. Now I think I'm 25, but this was 1990, right? So I've been around for a little while. I came in and started talking about servant leadership before anyone was talking about it. So I had to literally create a leadership style that matched who I was. And so people, laughed at me. I got all sorts of comments. But guess what? They saw my results. And they're like, wait a minute, whoa. How did Sonia get Bosch to sign this technological agreement that they would never sign? Like, there were decades that these companies would never do things. I come in with a different leadership style, and all of a sudden the results were mind-blowing. That's how I got attention. And that's why I tell people all the time, listen, don't come in trying to change an organization if you're not delivering. You've got to deliver your results. Then you can start having some conversations that help to evolve the organization as it goes to its next level of excellence.
One of the things that Mark Pritchard, the Chief Brand Officer of P&G and good friends of Jim and I's, is one of the things he always says is people need to be a force for good and a force for growth. That you need to kind of link it up, with, the bottom line, essentially, right? Because if you just kind of focus on the doing good, it just becomes philanthropy and it gets kind of buried, in someone who doesn't have probably a budget, right? But if you can kind of tie it to growth or marketing or, whatever it may be, it has more legs. Talk a little bit more about that, this whole notion, and you talk about this a lot, I was looking at some of the interviews you've done in the past, the whole notion of going from fear to faith. And before everyone got on, we kind of had a conversation about the opposite of fear is really love. But tell me a little bit more about this whole notion of going from fear to faith.
So, I studied business, I studied marketing. I love marketing. I love the world of branding and business and deal making and all the things that I learned along the way at Ford, Gillette, and Procter and Gamble, I literally love that. So I never had a dream to be an entrepreneur. Like, people think that this was part of my dream. No, I ran from this. I literally ran from my calling for years because I was afraid. And so we have to ask ourselves, when we are running from purpose and when we're running from what we believe we're called to do, why is that? For me, well, there were a couple things. Am I capable? Like, am I capable of starting a global movement and having 1 billion girls and women learning how to love themselves? And oh, by the way, bringing brothers along with us. Like, can I do that? Like, do I have the wherewithal to do it? And so a lot of times that gets in the way of us doing things. But quite frankly, I was making a lot of money, right? I had all the trappings of success. I had the house and the car and the kids and the husband. And so I was the breadwinner. And I'm like, okay, now, if I quit this job, are we going to be sitting on the side of the street? Right? So I'm just being real talk with you all. You all like that, right? You want real talk, right? So, I was scared to death because I was concerned about whether my lifestyle as it was could continue if I left Procter and Gamble. And so the way that I had to really address this dream that I had a literal dream. I had a mentee from every continent with the exception of Antarctica. And I noticed, I pay attention to patterns, and I noticed differences between my male mentees and my female mentees. My male mentees would say, hey, Sonia, I've got this amazing business idea. I need you to help me flesh it out. Can you help me? My female mentees were always coming to me and listen to me. They were every demographic, socioeconomic background, from all different places around the world. But they were all coming to me about the same thing. And what was that? Their lack of relationship with other women. Get this now. The guys are coming to me talking about, Sonia, I need help with business. The women were coming and saying, you know what? I don't like Tina. No, we don't have any Tinas on here tonight, right?
I'm not talking about you, Tina, if you are on.
Or saying, I don't want to work for Ann. Oh, you know what? I'm staying away from these women. So it was always something negative as it related to women. And I'm like, okay, now how are we going to get to the boardroom? How are we going to get to the C-suite if we're more focused on each other and whether someone's going to stab us in the back, rather than being able to really, truly focus on the business? Now, guys, when they don't like each other, they still support each other. They still help each other get promoted. But if you walk up on a woman that doesn't like you, you're in trouble, right? That's how we are. And it starts that competitive.
Sonia, can I pause you for a second? Because I've actually had numerous conversations with women executives about this. And once again, this is generalizations because there are many women that do collaborate and work well together. However, I think it kind of goes way back to how, my daughter's 6 right now. And I had a background in education, right? But if you think about men at a very early age, they're put into group sports like baseball, soccer, where they actually have to kind of work with each other. Yeah. And once again, generalization, because there's more girls who are in soccer now. But I know when I was younger, girls would do maybe running where they're competing against each other, ballet, or some of these other things. And so if you look at kind of how we are brought up, there is a different path that we're kind of taught, like just like girls are given kind of dolls, right? It creates a different mindset.
Yeah. And that's what I was getting ready to say is we're socialized as little girls to compete with each other. We're socialized to not like ourselves and not like each other. Okay. And I know, when I say that, a lot of times people are like, oh, but let's just think about it and peel back these layers, friends. It happens. And it happens in very subtle ways. So girls begin to say, oh, I got to compete for the guy. Like, I got to compete for this. I got to compete for that. I got to compete for the friendship. So we have seen that bullying starts as early as the age of 4. I said, how can you be a baby and you're a bully? Like, how can you be 4 years old and bullying, right? So they're getting all these messages. And I'll give you another example. Who wore it best? When you see that in the magazines, do you see them put 2 men next to each other? No, because the women are supposed to duke it out. The women are supposed to fight it out, right? And so it sets up this narrative for competition. So I saw that in all the companies, these amazing companies. I saw the behavior and I said, what's the solution? I prayed about it, went to sleep one night and literally saw the Sister Accord in my dream. And that's how I began to say, whoa, what is this? How am I supposed to use this to make a difference? And so the fear to faith walk was rooted in something that I cared about. I cared about the fact that I saw this behavior happening in corporate America, and I wanted to do something about it. And when I began to recognize that if I didn't walk in the assignment, if I didn't do what I was created to do, who else was going to do it? And what was going to happen to all the legacies of people who were really waiting for me to do what I was created to do? What would happen to them? And that scared me. And so Jim was a part of this journey. And I told him that I want to tell our story on a platform, because Jim met me when I was doing the media role. So when I first left Gillette, led part of the integration of Gillette into P&G, and then I helped to lead the design of the global media sourcing organization. And Jim said something to me one day that shook me to my soul. And he said, I'm gonna try not to do the ugly cry. This man took the time to speak life into me. And he said, Sonia, you're Esther. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember the story of Esther, but I got to go back and read it. So I had to, hurry up, get home. But the man told me what I was called to do. He literally told me what I was called to do. And that's when I said, you know what? I've got to get on a path of getting serious about doing what I was called to do. And that was literally how he ignited that fire in me, because he saw it even when I didn't see it in myself.
So talk a little bit more about Sister Accord and what your goals are. You kind of mentioned it briefly, but tell us a little bit more about your approach and what your ultimate goal is.
So as I mentioned, 1 billion, my goal is 1 billion girls and women learning how to love themselves. Because I just told you what happens to us, right? So a lot of times we don't love ourselves. And so the things that we are carrying inside of us causes us to be mean girls to each other, right? So once I understood that if I could just get people to fully love and embrace who they are, really love who you are, there's no time for hate. Comparison is the enemy of joy. So if you look to the left or you look to the right, you are going to always be disappointed. There's always someone cuter and this and that, all the stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day that we get caught up in. That stuff tears away at our soul and spirit. And it prevents us from really operating in who we have been called to be. And so once I understood what I could do as part of the curriculum and part of the events that we had with Sister Accord, I knew that I could work with both girls and women to really say, this is how we must live our lives. And so today, books, our curriculum is in schools. And so we are focusing on corporations with the sisterhood and brotherhood in the workplace platform, helping to bring love to the workplace. And so when I was talking to CEOs about this, they were like, but no one has come and talked to me about love in the workplace before.
Exactly. How did they react to that? Because I mean, when you talk about things like faith or love or whatnot in the workforce, there's kind of like, ooh.
They were like, who are you and what do you want? They were quite concerned about it. And then I said, now, if you're more comfortable with the word respect than love, let's bring it all together. And when they said, hey, no one has ever come and talked to me about this, I said, that's because it was my assignment. Like, think about this. It was my assignment. It was my responsibility to unleash this in the world. And so now people are always asking me, oh, we need to talk about love. We need to talk about love, right? I mean, literally CEOs, mostly men, right, are saying exactly what you're talking about, Sonia, is what we need. We must root out toxic work environments. It is literally killing us. And there's all sorts of research and all sorts of things. Stress is killing us. Listen, I just buried my line sister. We pledged sorority this past Saturday, 53, with a heart attack. So literally stress is killing us. And so if you have toxic work environments, people have to go off on stress-related disorder, disability, all kinds of things happen when we have toxic work environments. And so leaders are recognizing that. And again, Gen Z are saying, hey, if it's toxic, I'm out of there, right? So people are choosing to live their lives differently than perhaps when I came along. And so we are now seeing where CEOs are saying, absolutely, we need exactly what you're talking about, Sonia.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, so we post a lot of quotes and, comments or like micro learnings on our Community of Seven LinkedIn page. And about a week ago, I had actually personally posted something that was kind of controversial. It was basically a lawn sign that someone had posted. And it basically said, I love you.
Oh.
And there was like, if people can hate for no reason, I can love for no reason.
Yes.
And it was funny because most of the comments were positive, but there were some people that really, really reacted negatively to it. And that was fine. But like, it was really kind of this whole interesting notion. And I thought the reason why it was so powerful for me is this notion of like, people hate every day for no reason besides people's politics, their color, the color of their skin, their religion. Why can't we just love for no reason?
Right.
For me, it was a really kind of like powerful statement. So, I want to kind of bring it to kind of like your partnerships with companies, et cetera. You did something with Disney, and you created a program for women and men called Dream Walking, that really helped individuals take their dreams from their heart to their heads, to their hands and feet. Can you kind of explain that process and what it means and how folks who are on this call or kind of watching on LinkedIn or Facebook can kind of implement this within their company or maybe even within their lives?
Yes. So, funny story, here I am, I was speaking at Disney. So Disney Dreamers Academy is a program that Disney launched, probably now, I think a little over 10 years ago, to help students and families and students really understand the importance of dreaming. So many of us have stopped dreaming. And so we have to get back to, if we used to dream, get back to it. If we've never dreamed before, learning how to dream and to sit in it. And so I'm on stage and I'm just having a hidey-ho time telling people to dream, follow your dream, make it happen. And I come off stage and I'm backstage and I'm thinking to myself, Sonia, are you a fraud? Like, you are literally telling all these people to dream and go for it, but yet you're afraid to pursue your own dream. And so because I operate with a high level of integrity, I had to go home and do something about that. And so I really learned how to be mindful and meditate and be quiet. A lot of times silence will scare us, but I just learned how to just sit in silence and just say, okay, Lord, what do you desire for me to do? And so that's how dream walking came to me. And so I started to write it all out, and I keep a journal. I don't know, how many of you keep a journal? Every day you write in a journal? This is the one I've been writing in lately. My girlfriend, Terry Ellis. Are you guys familiar with In Vogue? So Terry made these for the Sister Accord. And so I just try to make sure I'm writing something every single day. And so I wrote down the process. Like I said, I'm a process person, and I wanted to really help people understand what I thought was necessary in order to bring the dream to life. The first thing that I talk about in terms of dream walking is, what do you really care about? There are a lot of people, and so all I do a lot of executive coaching. All of my leaders that I am coaching, everyone, all my mentees, everyone, my family, I am telling people, and I have been telling people probably for the last 2 years, to watch their language. Watch your language. You can find yourself being sucked into dysfunction, sucked into dysfunctional conversations easily on social media, where you're arguing about something that you shouldn't even be talking about. You shouldn't even be thinking about. We have 100 billion neurons in our brain. What are we using them to do? So I'm asking people, what do you care about? Like, what do you go to sleep thinking about? What do you wake up thinking about?
So, Sonia, can I pause you? Can I pause you for a second? Because I actually want to ask the folks who are either in the Zoom room right now, or the folks who are on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook Live, in the chat right now. Don't press send yet, but I want you to type in right now, what's important to you?
Yes.
So don't press send yet. We're going to do it all at the same time. Folks who are on LinkedIn Live or Facebook, do it right now in your chats, and just type in, don't press send yet, what's important to you, and I want you to type it in right now, okay? I'm going to do it as well.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to count down to 5, and we're going to press send together. Folks who are on LinkedIn Live as well. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press enter. So love, service, community, health. I wrote leaving the world better for my family, creating a diverse, equitable, inclusive, belonging environment. That's Jessica. Contentment. That's health. Awesome. Yeah. So let me see if I have some folks who are on LinkedIn Live as well, and I can kind of
love this.
Let me see if you guys actually posted. I would love to have closer relationships with other girls, family. Got a lot of family. John Carlisle, my old friend. Learning. Awesome. Yeah. So some of these things, think about, and I'm going to give a personal story, because what you just said, it was really resonated. So when many of you guys who followed this community of 7 know my story, which is I've been trying to figure out my passion I'm 46 now, 46 years. And I knew I was meant to kind of become an entrepreneur again, because I was an entrepreneur in my 20s, but I was safe in this corporate world. And so I didn't leave. And because there was fear, right? But also I didn't know what my calling was.
Yes.
And then I got laid off last year during the beginning of COVID, and I was depressed. And I really focused on what my values were, which was my faith, my friends, helping people, and freedom. And once I really focused on what my values were, Community of 7 was born, because I was like, how do I help as many people during the pandemic? And I just kind of started with that. I didn't have a business plan or case study. I just kind of built on what am I passionate about. So for everyone who's watching this on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live, or the folks who are in the Zoom right now, think about what you just kind of mentioned as a thing that's important to you. Family, helping people, contentment, figure out what those passion points are and see if there's a grain where you can kind of make it to something. Maybe it starts off as a small project and then you can kind of make it grow. So Sonia, you're a great example. If you were like, how do I help women? How do I create this environment? And you made it really big. How do I help 1 billion women? Right. And then it expanded to men. Right. Yeah. And you can make your dream small or you can make it big. Why don't you just make it big? And, another quote while you were talking came up in my head, and I've mentioned it before, which is sometimes you need to jump and the net will appear. And I think that's kind of what you did. You left this big high profile job at P&G and you started your own initiative because it was your passion.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely. You're spot on. And so I just ask people to start there, because once you start with what you really care about, you'll have passion naturally because you really care about it. See, what happens is so many people are spending time on stuff that they really don't care about. And so they're like, why don't I feel some passion? And they're trying to dig it up and dig it out, because that's not where your heart really is. So I ask everyone who I work with to just think about the things that you care about. Start there, because likely 9 times out of 10, I haven't met anyone actually, that's where the linkage is. That's where the magic is going to happen. So because I was concerned about what I saw amongst women in the workplace, I actually did something about it. I wanted to provide a solution to what I was seeing. And I actually started a women's resource group at Ford Motor Company way before it was okay to do so. People told me, you're going to get fired. And I said, well, I just feel like women should be able to come together and talk and share. And I don't want to see this adversarial behavior. And guess what now? I mean, now employee resource groups are, everywhere. So I just don't want you all to be afraid of starting right where you are. Yes.
You know what's powerful is that success leaves clues. And a lot of times the things that you've done when you were in high school or as a child or even in college or with you, once you got into corporate, there were signs that was kind of leading you to your destiny and what you wanted to create in a lot of ways. And we just have to be very cognizant and observant of these things.
That's right.
So one of the other things, I want to kind of open it up to questions for the folks who are on this call. And then I'm going to kind of mention some of the quotes on the things. If you have any questions, either on LinkedIn Live or for participants or in the Zoom room, please let me know in the comments. And I'm going to read a few of the comments on LinkedIn Live. David Hansen says he's a big believer in meditation, and it's created such a positive ripple effect in my life. And that's actually pretty powerful too. Yes, you can go on your tablet. Sorry. She knows exactly when to ask me to go on the tablet. But that being in like meditating, really listening to what's going on is really powerful in trying to figure out, other things. Other people are kind of commenting as well. Our Fraser, being strategic is really important. And Olu, don't be afraid of starting, just start where you are. And she loved that quote from you. Anyone else kind of want to ask a question? If in the Zoom room, or I'm going to just ask Jim Bechtel. So Jim, you've been kind of a mystery guest or a celebrity in this, and that you really kind of helped inspire Sonia to create this. What is your kind of advice, like from your experience in terms of being an advocate? And how do you kind of advocate for those around you, either in the corporate world or just even in the community, to kind of get to inspire people to kind of, you know, reach out for their passion?
Yeah. First of all, my number one piece of advice is go become friends with Sonia and Lan. Seriously, like when you're on your own and you're in this negative world, you have to go out and find people who will inspire you to be better. And they'll inspire you to look into a mirror. And when you look in that mirror, your eyes will open. You'll be, wow, I had no idea I was created to do good things. 80%, this number is going to freak you out. What people are addicted to is negative thinking. 80% of all thinking is tied to negativity. 60% of all people in the world do not feel loved. Right now, 60% of all people in the world don't feel loved. Sonia, when you talk about it, I am inspired. It's like she is the force for good. Like the fact that she can openly talk about loving on others when you know that others do not feel loved. Now I'll put it on as you're a manager. And Sonia and Lan, you've both heard me talk about this. So I did a study when I was at P&G on P&G and all the major companies about your boss and do you trust your boss? And the number one issue is 70% of people, this is 20 years ago, don't trust their boss.
Yep.
And the reason why they do not trust their boss is my boss does not care about me.
Yeah.
My boss doesn't care about my family. My boss doesn't care about my kids. And I was shocked when I saw it. I'm sure the number.
Do you see the through line here? Like with kind of love seems like a strong word in the workforce.
Yes.
But what you're really creating is trust and community. Like as a leader, one of the most important lessons I learned was that it's really kind of, your goal as a leader is to make more leaders.
Yes.
Right. And it's not about you, it's about the other person, and creating these safe places, psychological safety, physical safety for people to be their best. Right. And that starts with trust. And it does, love is a strong word, but like what is love is, when I think of love, I think of my mother, I think of family, I think about safety. I feel like a place where you can be who you are authentically. Yeah. So when I think of love, that's how I think, right? And that can happen in the workplace, and it should happen, because if you have trust, you can innovate. Most leaders are afraid. Yes. Because they want to hold on to their power.
They grew up in a fraternity where talking like this was not acceptable. And I'm telling you what all the results say. Everything Sonia said is true. She was inspired. And here's the key. You want to grow your business? You want to see your results improve? You care more about the people that you work with than they have ever seen before, and you will grow your business. It's a guarantee.
Yeah.
If you don't, yes, they'll stay with you, but they'll never give you their best. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? How do you care for them? You do not send them emails on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. You do not call them when they're on vacation. When someone in their family is sick, you send them food. You have them over to your house. You tell them, I'm going to stand up for you when no one else stands up for you. You do that. And all of a sudden, this idea about caring about others becomes relational. Yes. And what does everyone want? Everyone wants to be valued by others. And if you do this, you will be signaled out as that person really cares. And guess what you get? You get everyone's best. It sounds manipulative, and it's not. Everything Sonia said from what she did in 1990, whatever, she's proof. And she's changing the world. I was on a call with her and 25 CEOs a couple weeks ago. The CEOs were in shock hearing what she had to say, because the CEOs are the loneliest people in the world. Yeah. And Sonia's telling them what truth is, and they finally discover it when they're 65 years old, because Sonia's finally telling them truth. If everyone on this call takes what she says and what Lan says to heart, you will be a force for good and a force for growth, and people will love to be around you.
I'll mail you a check afterwards, Jim.
Well, now y'all see why I love this man.
So we have a question from R. Frazier. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can hear you. Hi.
My name is Renee. I'm sorry, I should have changed my my label, but my question was to that. She knows how I feel about her. Sonia knows that I just love her. And one of the things that she says that stuck out to me today when she was talking about patterns and noticing the pattern is that she was not afraid to step out on the things that she was hearing and the things that she was believing about herself and her future and her mantle and her purpose. But also on the other side of that was that you had a receptive a corporate collective that also said yes and undergirded you and gave you the tools for that. And so I'm just wondering if there are some things that the panel can help us to find and discern to find what it looks like to have that tribe, but not only that tribe, but that that kind of pattern of people that would undergird us.
Girl, listen here. Let me tell you, I have some scars. I have some battle scars. Listen, people weren't happy that I was coming in and questioning and saying these things. And, you know, all the companies that I was at, you know, I had people looking at me sideways. It was hard. It was challenging. And a lot of times, you know, other people were afraid. So I was kind of out there. And what I did was this. And so I would ask you all to do the same. Don't try to go it alone. Find advocates, find mentors, allies, people who believe in what you believe in, and ask them to help. So when I wanted to start the women's group at Ford, and no one had ever done that before, I literally found a leader and I said, would you sponsor? And
Was it a woman or a man?
It was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It was a woman. And she said yes. And so in some of the other instances, it was men who I would go to and say, hey, I really feel passionate about this. But, you know, I had a lot of folks who also were not happy with some of the things that I was doing. I've had people lie on me and say all kinds of things. I mean, I have stories. Okay, so it was not easy. I don't want anyone to walk away from this conversation thinking that people were just so, oh yes, this is something. No, they were like, no, this is how we do it around here. You know, I just cursed out the supplier, but he likes it. Really? Who likes that?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, but that was the culture. So,
Yeah.
So the reason why I spend time talking about culture and what's said and not said and what's accepted and what's not accepted, all of these things are very important, but I got a lot of pushback. So I would say to you that find those allies, find people who believe in what you believe in, and then have them help you bring some change and evolution to your organization.
But I have to say, you know, people like you have changed the way corporate America,
Yes.
people like you, Jim, you know, like the big P&Gs and the Unilevers and the Fords, because it you know, it's an old boys network in the
Right.
past. And in order to change that, it took a lot of time. And if you think about, you know, the Business Roundtable, which is all the leading CEOs of the major Fortune 500 companies, they recently changed their mission statement. In the past, the sole purpose of a company was shareholder good, which is how do we make money for our shareholders? But they changed it in 2018 to include vendors, customers, right? So not only shareholders, but stakeholders.
That's right.
And that might seem small, me talking about that, but that was a huge, huge change, because now it's about customers, it's about society, it's about, you know, it's not just about profit. And so these little movements, and one of the things I always say about in Community of Seven is that we are all raindrops, right? Mm-hmm. So what we do seems small and inconsequential, like a raindrop. But when we come together, we become the ocean. And it's these oceans that create ripples, which create waves. And if you think about civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter, any change that has happened in the world, it's because of individuals like you, right? And so what all of us on this call, everyone who's watching in LinkedIn Live, whatever you are doing to make the world a better place matters. Yeah. So I'm sure Sonia thought what she was doing was small at Ford, but it created a ripple effect, right? So we have some comments that are a little bit controversial, but hey, we're about let's talk about this. Bernie Mab says, interestingly, men at work were some of my biggest allies, and half the women I work with were the most toxic and competitive. So that's actually a really, and Olu also kind of agreed with this. And It's an interesting conversation because I know I've kind of had a similar experience in corporate world. And I think part of it is you were taught as a female executive in the workforce that you had to be toxic in order to move up, that you had to be like the men. And it creates this vicious cycle of meanness. I mean, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that and how you are changing the next generation of women so we don't have, one of my favorite quotes is from Madeleine Albright, and it's, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support each other. Like, how have you changed it with your program?
That quote always makes me laugh. And I like to say there's a special place in heaven for those of us who've decided that we are going to change the narrative on that. Listen, friends, as I said earlier, that hate, when you are hating on other people, it comes from within. That's why I spend so much time with our girls saying, you've got to learn how to literally love the skin that you're in. You have to, and we have to speak life into our girls, and we have to give them some tools. And so the way that I am approaching this is that I call it the and strategy. I've got to get to girls and help them understand how to truly love and respect themselves. And we have a whole process with that, and we have a curriculum for that. And I've got to get to the women who never got the message along the way so that they can learn how to truly love the skin that they're in and embrace who they are so that they can show up and really focus on getting to their next level of excellence, not trying to compete. Once you get to the next level of excellence, then it's time to get to the next level of excellence. So we literally are retraining the brain. I went to a trauma specialist at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. He actually wrote the foreword for my book, 51 Ways to Love Your Children, Dr. Victor Garcia. And he said, Sonia, you're helping people heal from trauma. So all of this stuff that we dealt with as children, because it never got addressed, we bring it into the teen years, we bring it into the adult years, we bring it into the workplace. And so what I like to always say is, that theorem, physics theorem that says an object in motion stays in motion until something disrupts it. The sister accord is a disruptor. We literally are retraining our brain based on all that trauma and all that hate and all that stuff. And we learn how to love and respect ourselves and each other. And it works. So when I go to the workplace and when I, work with different groups and corporations, they're like, Sonia, I cannot believe we are actually respecting each other. And we've reframed how we treat each other here in the workplace. So it does work, but it takes a lot of work. And that's why I said it's heart work. And heart work is the hard work. So most people try to run from it. But everything that we're doing with the Sister Accord, and great leaders have great relationships, and dream walking is we're sitting still and doing the hard work. We're doing the work that's necessary for ourselves so that we can show up the way that we desire in the workplace, in the community, at home, because the spillover effect is really amazing once we get ourselves right. And that's what we focus on.
I love that. Some comments, limiting beliefs create our reality. Olu says, re-engineering the mind, and it's really about mindset and perception. One of the things as we kind of close up that I feel this is really about too, is like, if you have a mindset of limiting beliefs that there's only so much,
right?
And the folks who have like an abundance mindset,
yes.
Because it tends to be the people who feel like there's not enough for everyone,
right,
that are the ones that are vicious, that are, not kind of focusing on selfishness and their own wins. But if you have like this abundant mindset or community mindset, it's about growth and not a lack of fear. That's and right. That, like, a lot of the beliefs we have when we move towards love, it's about abundance, it's about growth, it's about building communities. When you think about lack, it's about hate, it's about division, it's about making someone else feel separate. And I think that's really what's so powerful about what you're talking about and what you're trying to do with the Sister Accord.
Right. And I think the last thing that I'll say, because I see, I told you that this hour was going to go too fast. But the thing that's really important in all of this, and I create an unconscious bias training for organizations, is a lot of times because of the language. This is why I was saying to you all earlier, watch the language. The language is taken out of context and people don't understand what's being said. And so a lot of times people feel like, oh, if you're talking about diversity, if you're talking about equity, that means someone has to lose. Okay. That's where people get, well, not my pie, not my piece of the pie. Somebody else can lose, but not my piece. And that is the fallacy in all of this. So we're going around in this do loop, thinking that, someone's going to take something from me, when in fact, what we're talking about is that abundance that's expansive. Like if you, again, and that's why I said we're retraining our brain in all these programs to recognize the expansiveness, the infinite possibilities for our lives, that doesn't say or think or believe in win-lose, because we can win. We can win. But you have to believe that in your heart, and then you have to do the work to actually bring it to fruition.
So basically moving it from win-lose to win-win, and that it amplifies and grows things. And, when you're talking about like racism, discrimination, hate, all of this other stuff, it really has to do with that whole mentality of if they win, we lose. And it's usually a very small, because we have more things in common than we do that sets us apart. And it's those limited small groups of people that are trying to kind of create these divisions.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, I'll close off with what Olu just says. There's a place in heaven for women who support other women. So we're just changing it up a little bit. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Jim, for introducing us together. But if all of you guys want to put yourself into gallery view and unmute yourself, turn your video on. I think Sonia deserves it. We give her a big round of applause.
Yes, very good, very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone,
Sonia.
for joining in.
Awesome.
Bye,
Awesome,
everyone.
powerful.
I appreciate you all so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you.